last week we talked a lot about cash flow, and if you remember, Cindy told us to work on the cash flow for a month, for the day, and then for a year. So if you have any questions about that, please ask. We've got some more information over here that you can use for that information. If you're having trouble with that, look at all the people that have been here and that are coming, and they are open to work with you and talk to you about your plan individually. Tim Blankenbeckler especially. Please contact him, and he will certainly set up a meeting with you. You can come to my office, so we can do it somewhere in town, and he'll be glad to help you work on that. And we also talked about the difference in a feature and a benefit of your business and how to solve the problem and maybe some alternatives to other solutions that might be possible. So if you have any questions about those things, be sure and ask me. You can email me. You can ask during the class. We have some visitors with us for this class. We have Buzz Witt, who is the owner of Mountain View Lodge here in St. Paul, and we're glad to have him. And we have Danny Counts from Castlewood, who now works for People's Bank, and we're glad that you all are here this evening. And we have another visitor. What's your name? Jasmine, okay. So you're here for Heidi? Yes. Okay, great. All right, so anybody have any questions to get started with? On the table I have placed a flyer for the play, Breaking and Entering. You have 2 chances to see that play next week. It is a fundraiser for the Lyric Project. On Monday night, it will be at the Sugar Hill Brewing Company as a dinner theater, and then on Friday night we will have just the play at St. Paul High School, and both of the proceeds from these will go to support the Lyric Project. So I hope that you can attend one of those at least. And remember, next Monday we have the opening for Western Front Hotel. That is at noon on Monday. We'll have the ribbon cutting, and you'll have an opportunity to go into the space and look at it. It's stunning. And the restaurant will be open for lunch, and then you can start making reservations after that. Did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, you don't have the time for the Lyric on Monday night?
On Monday night, it is at 6 p.m. And Ms. Jennifer here can line you up with some tickets.
We are having pork loin, tri-state potatoes, broccoli, a salad, a dessert. It's going to be delicious.
That will be delicious.
How much?
It is $40 a person.
And that's for dinner and the show. And you need to make reservations for that.
Here, in advance, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
So the Sugar Hill is very generous in giving the profits from that to the Lyric Project. And then the group of players, they're calling themselves the Red Table Gang. It's just a group of 4, but it's a romantic comedy, so it should be very entertaining. And these all are experienced actors that are in this community group. That's the name of it, Juanita.
I thought it was a red door.
No, I think she said Red Table. Well, she may have told you Red Door.
That's a little bit hard.
It is. Okay, any questions or anything we need to talk about before we get started with our speaker tonight? All right, we're very fortunate to have with us tonight Mary Trigiani. She will tell you a little bit about herself. I've heard her several times speaking at several different forums on economic development, and I was very happy that she was able to join us tonight. So you can tell about yourself while I get this.
Okay. I appreciate the invitation to be with you guys because my colleague Dan from New People's Bank knows that I love anything that's startup, whether it's tech or not, but we're all in some way, shape, or form involved in technology at this point. So I'm here because of the speaking. I don't think I told you this. It'll be 2 years in May that they asked me to come, that Chancellor Henry asked me to come for that economic forum. And I had been coming back once or twice a year, anyway, or more or less, depending. I'd see my mother frequently. She was living in Big Stone Gap, which is where we moved when I was a kid. And so when you come home to see your parents, it's like you're coming home to see them, and I would come and I'd stay in the house, and I really didn't get out and circulate that much. I'd see some friends, and that's about it. But when I was asked to do this talk, I started really looking at the economy questions, the things that, you know, have been happening here, particularly in the last few years. And I got really intrigued by what I think is a huge opportunity here, and many of you in this room are stoking it or seizing it. Buzz I've known, you know, since I don't know when, and I've eaten at your restaurant, and it's, what's happening here is evoking what, not just with the potential, but the reality of our area, and it's what drew me back here. And when I gave that talk, 2 people came up and asked me to do some work with them. I was a consultant for many years in helping companies position themselves, talk about themselves, figure out how to use social media, figure out how to do their messaging. And one of those clients is now my boss at New People's Bank. He's our boss. He's the CEO of the bank. And a lot of what you're going to see today are things that I've sort of been pondering in the role that I had. I was lucky to have Dan as a client, and then Todd asked me to come and join the bank full time, which was big surprise, big thrill. 2 years ago, I had no idea any of this was down the pike, and that's the biggest thing about, I think, what we're all doing here in general, and the customer thing. I mean, if you kind of live in that customer mindset, what does your customer want? What does your customer need? It takes you out of yourself a little bit and helps you focus on that opportunity in front of you. Because sometimes the smallest conversation will ignite the smallest spark of an idea for doing something. So that's why I'm here, and why I'm in Virginia. And our part, which whenever you hear somebody call it far Southwest Virginia, as a personal favor, tell them it is Virginia's great Southwest, okay? And I'll pull out my phone and read you the thing about where that came from. That I didn't invent that term. But here we are in Virginia's great Southwest. You guys are part of the engine that's going to turn that around. So before we talk about this, 2 things. I'd like to kind of get through these thoughts I've gathered, and then I'd like us to try to talk a little bit as a group here, you know, do Q&A and sort of walk each other through, because I have a feeling that you guys know a lot already about what you want to do with your customers. So we're just going to mine that and kind of turn this into something that's not so much a presentation, but it's also a conversation. The second thing I want to know is how many of you are starting up a business right now that's a new business? Okay. And what kind of, can you tell us what, I'm sure everybody knows, but what kind of business is that?
I have like a design business where I do decals, shirts, and then I'm branching into like kind of offering some boutique clothing.
Okay, and is that online, or is it brick and, it's online?
Yes.
Any brick and mortar or strictly on?
Strictly
See,
online.
look at that. That's
It's a big thing right now, and like I sell on Etsy, but most of mine comes from Facebook. I do, like I'm starting to sell abroad, you know, across the U.S. So a lot of mine is just local. But it's branching out because other people are, you know, Facebook pages getting out there.
This is an example of one of the things that could really diversify our economy here, is getting kind of in that mindset of what retailing is today. It doesn't have to just be local. It depends on what you're selling, but, now how about you? What's your business?
Mine's a little diner restaurant.
Oh, how cool! Here in St. Paul?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, it's in the old river.
Is that the Dewdrop? Did I see that on everything? There's a famous restaurant in Manhattan called the Dewdrop Inn.
That's what mine is,
The Dewdrop. That's really great. How about the rest of you guys?
Jackie's gonna be a startup.
Okay, what in? Do you know?
Well, it's kind of changing at the moment.
That's
so,
okay. That happens all the time in startup land.
Kind of like, I want to do hot dogs and stuff eventually, like a little bit of a lunch, but probably going into like clothing, sort of consignment,
Oh.
crafts, homemade goods and stuff like that. Been talking to somebody today, so it may be starting sooner than
So
I think.
you're just kind of trying to figure out what kind of a business you want to do.
Yeah, I had it in my mind and opportunity come up, so it's kind
Yeah.
of changing a little bit, so.
Well, you just never know what's around the corner. Well, let's just go around. Steve, is that Steve Austin? Like, isn't that the $6 million man? Wow, am I dating myself or what? I saw that on Cozy TV. Hometown Hardware, cool. And Austin, oh, you're a multiple entrepreneur, okay, or a serial entrepreneur. So is Hometown Hardware exist already?
Yes, we've
Oh,
been
okay.
open since July.
And new company?
Mhm.
Great, everything's here in St. Paul, right?
Yes.
Okay. How about you? You're just here hanging out? Enjoy. How about you, Donna?
I'm the Country Road Adventure, the TV.
Oh, okay.
show.
Oh, okay. That's over by you? Buzz?
No, she's at the caboose.
Yeah, I'm paying for it.
You're at the park, okay. How about you?
My daughter and I are Clinch Life, well, daughters, both daughters and I, we're Clinch Life Outfitters. We have kayaks for rent as well as guided fishing, guided kayak tours, but the shop itself is fishing, hunting, camping, hiking, any type of outdoor gear. And I have a section of vintage outdoor items that include clothing, old woollen things, sunglasses.
That's like a brand extension. You're in, right?
And dog stuff.
Oh, see, that's great. So you guys essentially, your customer base is not just local. Like you guys, your customer base, it is local, but if they have people coming in, right, okay. And you guys are doing floors, Jeremy? Okay. Wait, that apple didn't fall far from the tree. That's what, no, isn't that what your dad did? No,
Well,
wait.
he did a lot of it. We just,
I know his dad, that's why I'm.
yeah, we're really kind of, I guess we spin off of that and already had good connections with suppliers,
Okay.
manufacturers, and so we're just taking that up a level. I guess my wife and I, Judy, have gone into it, and we're offering a lot more choices, a lot more things we can do. And we're looking, hopefully, to go into other areas of some home improvement.
Related to home improvement.
So,
That's interesting, isn't it? Because that could be really, that could be kind of cool. Because in the sense that, and this goes back to kind of the journey back here that I've had, is sometimes I think that we take for granted what we know and what we do, and what we have to offer. So sometimes something like having this conversation about customers kind of reveals things that we knew but really weren't thinking about. So thank you for everybody for telling me. Buzz, Mountain View Lodge. So not bed and breakfast, do you?
No.
Because that would mean you'd have to get up.
No, it means I have to have more health department.
You have to have the health department. Oh, well, these guys can tell you about that probably.
They don't need to tell me about it.
So well, that's kind of good though, because it's like St. Paul's got an ecosystem going here, you know? This is really cool. Okay, so I'm excited. So, knowing your customer, there's all this stuff that's happening that has been going on quite a bit, and what do I do?
The little
They turn the lights
arrows.
out on you so they can see that.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. So, this is a big area in Silicon Valley right now, because all of those people who got all of their degrees in engineering and had their heads down, and I don't know if anybody in here wore pencil protectors in high school, no offense if you did, but those types that really don't know anything about people need to learn about people. So that has led to a cottage industry in the marketing sphere on the West Coast and actually across the country. And that's what I mean about, you guys probably have more resident knowledge in this room about how to treat people, because that's our culture. We know how to be hospitable and to put others first. That's part of what we do. So this is kind of, I came across this a couple of years ago. And this is something that we actually at New People's Bank are really diving into this concept of what is it that we really do. We're a bank, right? But what is it we really do? And so it's not about being a bank, it's about taking care of our customers. And so it's the experience. What is the experience that every one of our customers has when they walk into our establishment or see us online or read about us? What's that experience? And this is an IBM executive who's saying, if you focus on the purpose rather than, this is so powerful for me, because if we think about why is that person walking into our store, walking into our establishment, reaching me, it's about their need, not about my need to get a purchase out of them. So what that does is it automatically shifts the conversation, it shifts your mindset, and that's what I'm advocating, and we can talk about that some more. So these are, and we'll have these for you tomorrow. I'm going to PDF this and make sure you guys have it. These are, so if some of you are kind of into taking an assignment and doing almost like a workbook, there's going to be that component here if you like that. If not, this is just, let's just get the ideas flowing. But where you always start in marketing, and you're going to have more marketing next week, is, and this again is external, it's not about what you're selling, we're just, and this will be good for you because you're still figuring this out. What is the size of the market? So when you start a business, you want to make sure there's a market. And if you're still going to start that business, knowing the size of the market is going to help you decide where you're going to focus your efforts. So let's say you have a passion business, a lifestyle business, you're retired, you want to do something else, you're just starting out, you want to try something. Joe, I just realized I passed over you. Are you with
He's
Joe?
with me.
He's with you. Oh, okay. Well, this is good because you're going to be working right into that. Okay. So it's this idea of externally focusing. What's the size of your market? Who else is in the market? So Dewdrop and the brewery, in our world, of Southwest Virginia, the world I grew up in, they would be competitors, okay? In the world that we want to, that we're entering, you could be potential collaborators, you could be like Miracle on 34th Street, you could be Macy's and you could be Gimbals, and you could be saying, oh, go over there to theirs because they have pork loin and I have this. It's that kind of, it's an ecosystem. But you still want to know who they are because you don't want to repeat. You want to do something different. You want to be complimentary. You want to learn from them. You want to benchmark it. But the best towns have 2 or 3 or 5 restaurants to choose from, right? Because that gets more people here. You do want to know what the other players are doing. And sometimes you have to think of people as competitors, but most of the time, if you think of them as players, it's a little less icky. The other thing you learn is, with those players, so if we were looking at St. Paul's as an ecosystem, you could learn from each other by what are the messages, what are you saying about your products? And you might see a billboard or an ad or something that really appeals to you, and that might spark, how would I do that ad? How would I put this on Facebook? How would I do this on LinkedIn? You know, something, trending floors, you might want to be looking at being on LinkedIn to find customers, as not just Facebook. It depends on who that customer is. If you're looking for executives that are building some kind of a home that requires home improvement and a certain, that might be where you need to be, not just Facebook. It's that kind of thing. But this idea of watching what other people are doing is key. That's what I did here. A lot of the stuff you're going to see are things that I pulled from other people's thinking and just repackaged it. So once you do this, again, this is kind of basic stuff, and you're going to hear this throughout, I think, this program. Not just me, but it's what's the resulting opportunity, because sometimes, and this is again what you're going through, Jackie, you had a meeting today that went, oh, well maybe I should be thinking this way. If you're market focused, those ideas are going to keep coming even after you start your business, and it's kind of like, is it Melisson? Melisson. It's like what Melisson has done with, she's got a core business of outfitting, but what she's done is taken, you know, the idea of, well, 50 years ago or 100 years ago, when they were fishing, what did they wear? Or what kind of a fishing pole did they use? So it's that kind of thing of how do you constantly build interest. It comes from that. And then you get down to, well, who really wants to buy my product? You know, so I see McDonald's cups. You know, that customer may want a different eating experience than what you're going to get at the Dewdrop or at the brewery. You know, so if you're opening a restaurant, and this goes back to don't duplicate what everybody else is doing, create a different kind of experience, and really, if it's the who wants to buy my product, that gets you back to the customer. Who's that customer? So there's a story I'm going to tell in a minute. Who wants to buy my product first? Why is this important? In our world, there are people who influence other people, and we're very word of mouth. So if you're in the right community talk, whether it's at a church or a parents gathering or a social event, a party, or on Facebook, those people can influence where, and there's this whole track when you do customer identification of finding influencers. It's what Instagram is about. It's why influence started on the red carpet. That's why Giorgio Armani will put Kate Blanchett in a dress and not charge her, because she's literally marketing. She's going to influence people of a certain stratosphere to go out and buy Giorgio Armani. It's what Gap does. It's, you know, who they put in that. It's going to. That's the same thing in our world. A little bit different. Who's going to go to church on Sunday and go, hey, I just shopped at so-and-so, or I was online shopping at your company, and I had a great experience. So that's important for that reason. And the other thing you begin with is, this goes back to all of these things kind of influence it. What should I say to the market and my potential customers? That really, if you've gone through all this, even in a casual way, it really helps you refine that messaging. I'm big into messaging and the words you choose. They can make you very special, and it's free to figure out. You know, there are people who obviously do very well in agencies helping with that. But one of the things, again, we have here in our tradition that we've all grown up around, if we're from here, we all live with now, even if we're not, is the storytelling. It's how do we tell that story? That's what this is about. That's something I could talk about for days, is the story part of it. So this kind of gets down to a bit of a numbers thing. Potential active users. That's kind of a fancy phrase for like, what's the real market? Like, we could say that in this corner of Virginia, we have 400,000 people living here, right? Let's say that these 11 counties in Virginia's great Southwest are your market for whatever. So that's roughly 380, 400,000 people, but how many of those people will actually walk into your hardware store? And when you think about that, when you ask that question, it's like, well, it's somebody in an X mile radius might come. Or if I'm selling something in my store that nobody else has, maybe they'll come from Wytheville, Wythe County. Or maybe they'll come from Blandon. You know, that's the kind of questions you ask. The growth potential is important from the standpoint of what you invest in it. Is it going to grow? And it also, that I noticed that Kathy was taking you through some of the cash flow stuff, which is, I like to tell people, don't put me near the money at the bank yet. Anyway, but that's, the money part of it is more that you're thinking about how much effort am I going to put into this for what base? And can I predict how many times you're going to come back to my store? If you can do some of this, it's a good thing to do. I don't like to get hung up on this because sometimes our guts are good. But like if you're going to walk into a startup, if you're going to go to a cousin or an uncle and ask for startup money or bank for a loan, some of this is really helpful to have. And to me, the thing that rocks my boat is factors that attract users and buyers. And that follows on to that previous slide and gets into my favorite thing about marketing, and that's differentiation. And it's my favorite thing because that's where what the customer is telling you, what the market is telling you, enables you to figure out in yourself, what is it I want to do for that market? And what is it that I have that they're really going to lock onto? That's the fun part. I wrote years ago, I'm from an Italian family, and everybody wound up making meatballs differently. So they might use the same ingredients, although that would change too. They might use the same thing, but I watched over time that one cousin would bake her meatballs and then put them in the sauce and then let them stew all day. Another grandmother would saute them in olive oil in a frying pan. My dad MacGyvered it to where he would just poach the meatballs right in the sauce. And so that is differentiation. And while my mother was doing this, while we'd watch her do this, she'd always be like, you know how you come home from high school and go, I'm not, well, I never said this, but my siblings would, I'm not popular. Yeah. So, I'm not, you know, my mother would say, don't worry, just be different. That's going to get you much farther in life than being like the next person over. And so, it's the same thing here. Calculating the market is good to have those numbers for the money people and also to keep yourself in the right lane. But the biggest thing is to get to those factors that make you really who you are and your product who they are. And you start with people. You start with people. It goes to the customer. Let them be your inspiration. Not annoying, which they can be. But it starts with really letting them inspire you. And that requires who are using similar products. So if you start with people and then kind of watch what they're buying, and now we live in a world of free research if we have a computer or if we're near a library. You just go in there and you just spend time studying. Big believer in research. We believe in it in our company as well. it really kind of helps you, it keeps you focused externally, but it gets you to those kind of factually based things up the top, which frees you to be creative. So have any of you heard of this concept of minimum viable product? This is something that started in software engineering. So when technology started getting faster, software designers, engineers were coming up against old processes that they used to design software programs. And as I understand it, it's the waterfall approach, which is more sequential. Within the last 10 years, these guys have come up with these ways to do what they call agile software development. So that simply means that you're moving faster. You hear words like pivot, and you pivoted today. You got to give yourself credit for this, because sometimes people go, oh, I changed my mind again. No, you pivoted. As long as you make it productive, it's a pivot. You know, you're looking at your business idea and seeing what really works. So, where does the customer fit into this? You're looking at a target. It helps to really start small, guys. With, you know, this thing about it's 400,000 in this region. Well, maybe your customer base is 10,000. Maybe it's 5,000. So don't take on the entire market, but this goes back to just look at what's happening around you. Take some time, take a couple of days, take a week if you can, and just kind of do this scan of your marketplace, where you're living, rapidly. This is really key. It's being willing to let go of an idea. One of the things I learned, I've done a lot of different things in work, and one of them was speech writing. And with that, I'm very grateful for that experience for one thing. When I was helping somebody with a speech, it wasn't my speech, it was his or her speech. So that meant I had to climb into their heads, and I had to understand the way they talk, their cadence, what words they would use. They might use words I don't use, and vice versa. So what that does is, and it served me well in the rest of my career, because it was easy for me to not have my ego overly invested. But what you learn is, oh, that word doesn't work, and that's not what Victor would say. So, got to get rid of that word. And you had to do it fast, particularly if you were on a deadline. So, results, the recording of results, that's a good thing if you're kind of a journal person. However, you can, you know, you want to keep track of what you're learning to a degree, but then come to a really quick conclusion. And back to the customer, watch what they do, not what they tell you. You know, people do a lot of customer surveys, and I totally geek out on those, like doing, what is that, Survey Monkey? But watch their behavior, especially like in online, or you know this, Steve, in a hardware store. You know if something is sitting there on a shelf longer, that's a behavior, right? Somebody's not buying that for a reason, and that's knowledge. And you know to mark it down or whatever to get it out of there so that you can put something on that shelf that is going to move. That's the behavior that you're watching. You're not locked into, oh, I really love that hammer. That is the best hammer anybody ever made. Well, if nobody's buying it, that's data too. This is the agility, is once you start the business, it's constant learning. It's not, you know, you're going to stock a product or put something on a menu that is just not going to go. That's not a fail. That's new knowledge. That's new data. That's one thing about Silicon Valley that they do really well, is failure is not failure. It's just, it's part of growth. So customer persona, this is a big woo right now, and justifiably so. So, I'm going to tell you a story about a very personal one about persona. A customer persona is where you can literally draw a picture of your target customer or customers. Who's going to come and sit in my restaurant? Who's going to come in and buy those hammers? Who is going to rent something to take down the clinch? Who's gonna come and stay at Mountain View? You can get so granular that you can draw a picture of this person, what he or she is wearing, their age, their race, what kind of books they read, and that's kind of fun. So you're identifying your customers and the people who influence them. If you can get a meeting with them, great. Go into McDonald's and strike up a conversation. One thing around here is people will share with you if you ask them stuff in the right way. Go into your, you could, I've seen that at your restaurant where I'll be sitting there and just talking to somebody that, I didn't know, and, you just strike up a conversation. And you kind of do it where they are. So if somebody is in, I once had a girl walk up to me in a Nordstrom Rack store, and she said, I'm trying to do, I'm opening up a business. She was going to be cutting hair, doing hair. And she was approaching women in that department store to ask them, this was in a Nordstrom actually, but she knew what kind of customers she wanted, and that's where she went to drum up business. But she did it in a way, this is where your research mode comes in, is, well, if you were going to go and buy a hammer, where would you buy it? If you were going to go and buy flooring, where would you buy it? Type of thing. And that could be at a dinner party. It doesn't have to be in Lowe's. You don't have to walk into, a potential competitor and do that. It's asking them what they think. So my other story related to this is, oops, let me go back. Begin with the picture of your customer. I used to, I had a client, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was in San Francisco, and they were in San Jose, and I didn't want to drive there. It's like 50 miles. If it were like here, I would have been driving it, I could get on a shuttle and work for an hour and a half, however long that ride would have been. That's, the commutes there are torturous. So there were these people who had worked in a major tech company who started a shuttle service. And they outfitted these really great shuttles where you had Wi-Fi, you had electricity, your laptop could be plugged in, everything was great. And so I could get it on the corner of my block where I lived, and it would take me to about a mile away from my client. And when something went wrong, I would go into their website, or I would do a chat with them on Twitter or something and just say, hey, this happened today. And they were very appreciative of it. I did not know how appreciative until a few months later that project had ended, and I was at a conference or some night event like this, and people had name tags, and I had mine on, and this guy says to me, hey, I know you. Never met the guy in my life. And I looked at his tag and he said, Ride Pal. That was the name of the company with the shuttle service. I said, but we've never met. How do you know me? This guy was a programmer or a software engineer. I had been dealing with the customer service people. They had taken my picture off of social media and hung it in a room like this where they all worked. And it was their customer service people, it was their chief financial officer, and it was their they all worked in a room. And this is what's so great, was that these software guys would never see a customer, but they were doing something with the app where you would book a ticket or whatever. And this guy says, your picture's hanging on our wall. They'd taken it off because Mary, you called so much and you helped us with your comments and your questions. We built out a customer persona based on what we were hearing from you. And they decided that so it wasn't because I was their favorite, but it helped them realize, why would she be a target customer? Why, and it was valuable because it made it vivid for the back office people. Now you guys might be 1 or 2 people in your businesses, so this may not be necessary. But it's like having a photograph of a family member. You remember them, you remember who they are. It was a device, and that's why this persona stuff can be so powerful. But the thing, the thing that's important here is that you do it quickly and you not get too hung up on stuff. That's a big thing here. And I want to muscle through my talk here so we can really talk turkey about stuff. And those aren't turkeys, I have no idea what they are. I had this bird thing and it just kind of went with it. So another way to live in a customer's head is to think about what they say about you and how they would describe you. And knowing these things is part of that persona development. How do they describe you? What influences them to walk into your store or go onto your website? The thing to me that's important about any business is, and this goes back to what the IBM guy said about purpose versus purchase. It's what is going to make them think about you all the time, or at least you come to mind when they're thinking. That's the kind of stuff that you, like if you were telling a story about a great-grandmother who, over in Coburn was a moonshine person, what do you call it, a bootlegger. What would you say about her? It's sort of this, she's so she's kind of a vivid part of your day. You want your establishment to be a part of their lives in a way. And how do it's like you go into your favorite establishment for a beer or a hamburger. That's part of your life at this point. Facebook is part of people's lives. So it's a very effective way to build business and keep customers. And then can you use what you know they're saying about you to market your company? One way to honor customers is to quote them and to ask them to be a face of your company. Can I quote you on that? Can I tell so-and-so that you did this, like in flooring, let's say somebody's building a $1 million house somewhere and has a big spread somewhere up here in Wise County. They're going to know other people who do this. So for you to have the ability to say, well, I helped so-and-so with their house. You might want to talk to them about what their experience was. It's that kind. Let them do the talking for you. Bottom line here is think about their days, not just what they do when they walk into your establishment. Think about the whole day. And think about how you can make that day better. That's what keeping them at your heart is. So, defining your customer's experience. This is where things are going now. The persona thing has been a big thing for 5 or 6 years. Now it's what's the experience they have with you, and that's why I'm such a big fan of this idea of how you make their lives better or easier. So when it comes down to that experience, hammer. How's that? Is that a woman who's just going to tap a nail into the wall to hang a picture, or is that a big guy who's going to put a floor in that he bought over at Trending Floors? It's almost down to that. And what's the experience? Are they going to hit themselves on the thumb? Is that a time check?
No, not yet.
Are they going to hit themselves on the thumb, or are they a pro? And then this is down the road, so, but I want to throw this up here because you guys are going to grow thriving businesses, right? So, what's the experience everybody has with you? Because the more you focus, this is almost like a psychological device for you to kind of keep yourself going in the days when you just want to go, oh, what a horrible day. It's like there are all these other people who have a stake in your success. This community, this county, this town, your employees, your partners, your neighbors, the media, whoever's talking to you from the Bristol Herald Courier or, the Coalfield Progress, influencers and investors. You might be getting grants. That's an investor. your taxpayers were your investor, right? So what's the experience they're having as a result of that money having gone to you? So customer data is key, and this is, we're kind of coming into the home stretch here. So this is this workbooky stuff. If you're a workbook person, mapping the journey is big because, and it's a device as well, but it can be very, especially if you're trying to coach a team that's working with you, this can be really powerful. Mapping the journey means when's the first time the customer sees you, or sees your product, or sees your, is it on the website, is it driving down this main street? You know, the folks at the hotel is probably going to be a physical thing because they're going to be driving by. It might be the same at the restaurants, at the hardware store. You're different. They're going to come across you on Facebook. So what's that first, they call them touch points, right? So what are those touch points? So to get to that first touch point, you have your data, you have your persona. These are stages that you can coordinate, and I'm going to have a couple of graphs here, things that I picked up on the internet that I'm going to share with you that you can then adapt if you want as a workbook exercise. But when do they become aware of you? When do they consider you? When do they take action? And when do they have a relationship with you? When does it go from the purchase to the relationship that they're going to come back and see? These are the things to consider. And those touch points are, if they come in there and one of your employees is crappy, that can upend the whole thing, right? So it's this aspect of when, and you know, what I like to tell colleagues at work is, what's that experience that somebody has when they walk into our branch? Are we happy to see them? Are we like burning to help them? It's that, and that passion for the customer comes from a passion for seeing them happy. That's why I say, where are they in your heart? Where are they in your day? If you get past the purchase, you can get into a relationship and into doing the right thing. One thing, there's a guy over in Kentucky named Rusty Justice. Dan and I know him. I'm a huge fan of the guy. I think he's a national treasure, and he gets really mad when I say that. But he tells people I eat dynamite for breakfast, so I'm just getting back. But anyway, Rusty has become very visible in the last 3 or 4 years. He's a coal operator and a trucking operator. But he heard Mayor Bloomberg of New York say, can't teach a coal miner how to code. Mayor Bloomberg said that about 5 years ago. And this was written up in a magazine called Wired, which is like a very hot magazine in the tech sector. And Rusty, either Rusty said this or somebody said this about Rusty, that it was like waving a red flag in front of a bull. Because he and his partner, who knew zip about coding, he used a computer, that was it. They knew everything about coal, and they knew everything about moving coal and trucking it and all that kind of stuff. Zip about coding, and he's like, you know what, wait a minute. And they started a coding operation. And someday, if you ever have the chance to hear him speak, you got to hear him do it, because he'll explain how they got into this and how they did it. I would put how they got into a programming business up against anybody, anywhere, anytime, because they did their research. And what they found out was that, and I'm getting to the point of this, but what they found out was that there are things that coal miners have to know how to do that are actually almost personality traits that lend themselves to coding software. And they were able to, they had 900 people, I think it was, apply for 10 positions over in Pikeville for coding. And what they've learned as a result, they've got MIT, they've got Carnegie Mellon, and Google coming to see them, and more to come. on that. But what he's able to do is talk about our region, and he calls it Southwest Kentucky. He's got to throw Tennessee in there. But what he says, and this is why I brought up Rusty at this point in mapping the journey and the story that we tell and understanding the customer, and at the heart of what we do is we have a value system here that is more robust and intact, that's based on whether you're a practicing Jewish person or a practicing Christian. It doesn't matter, because our ecosystem was shaped by Judeo-Christian values, which is you put other people first. All we're talking about is how do you put the customer first. And all I'm talking about is how do you get to know who they are. But we have this ability, and it gives me chills when I hear people talk about this, to do things that nobody else in the world is doing. Because we know the thing they're all paying big bucks to learn how to do, which is this. We know how to take care of people. You know, well, all we have to do is channel it in a different way and kind of climb into a new mindset of what that means, of what taking care of them means. So, and this is the journey part. What are the steps they follow when they're coming to you? Where do you touch them? Where are those touch points? Also, where do people hurt? And this goes back to Rusty's whole point about what is our secret sauce? It's that value system. We kind of know when somebody's hurting. I have people say to me, something's really bothering you. And I don't even know something's bothering me, but you know what? They're right, and it is. And it's here. You guys, I can say this to you because I haven't lived here for very long again, but it is uncanny how people just collect into a vibe. That's all we have to do when it comes to business, is hit that. It's cool. I just think it's great. I really do. How they think about the last time you bought something. You think about how you want to be treated, right? So when you walk into the Dewdrop, or when you walk into Steve's store, or when you walk into Melisand's store, how do they treat you? You know, and did that make you happy? Tap that. That's where we come in. That's where our ego comes in. Is, well, how would I feel? You know, this is key. And okay, you're going to be the poster child for your generation right now. Somehow, this is the other thing. We're teaching our kids this better than other people are teaching their kids. I don't want to throw the rest of the nation under the bus, but what the heck? You know, we're teaching people. We teach our kids how to act, and this is part of it. Now, yeah, we're suffering the effects. We're not closed off in these mountains. We're suffering the effects, but it comes down to understanding how people want to be treated. And sometimes when we have an organization, as you grow and you hire people, you're going to have to teach them a lot. That's part of the drill right now. You know, we have our problems here. We have parents working all the time. The kids are, sometimes the kids are alone. So when they come to work, that might be an added layer that we didn't have. Sure, we had to be taught stuff. At people that are you know, in mid to later life, we had to be taught stuff too. We didn't spring forth from the head of Zeus perfect employees, but that this is something to consider. So now I'm just going to walk you. I'm not going to go through all these again. This is going to be in the material. And what's important here is that I didn't do this. I took this. I did some research over the last month since I knew I was going to be doing this. These are different constructs for what you can use, depending on how you like to do things. So this is another thing. This one's really easy. I have to say I kind of like this one because, and this, by the way, eConsultancy is this great blog I read, or you can get an email from them every day. They are geniuses at everything marketing. And there's a lot of stuff in there, and it's kind of big company driven, but you can really distill a lot. And so this is one of the things I found on the journey. So if you take those discovery to research to the purchase to delivery after sales, that's your loyalty up there after sales. And what are these are self-explanatory. So let's just go to that loyalty column after sales. What are the tasks you have to accomplish to keep a customer loyal? You want to stay in front of them, right? What are the questions you would ask? You ask yourself, you ask them. The touch points, I talked about that, like where are you touching the customer in that after sales thing? Are you sending, depending on what it is, are you thanking them? Are you giving them a coupon? Are you, that's what you decide based on what you know they like. And you ask them, would you like a coupon? Would you ever use a coupon? Or, how would you like to enjoy, or how would you like to enjoy us again? The emotions, this goes back to how are they feeling while you're there. And if you're in a restaurant, or actually anything, you can tell if people are enjoying their time here, right, when they're with you. And the weaknesses are these things that I'm calling the pivot points, or it's not a fail, it's data. So this is another view. What's the trigger that gets them to walk into the store? What's their path to you? Or did they read an ad? What's their path into you? How do they walk in there? Then they made the purchase. Now, can you do a relationship that leads to a return that then gets back to another trigger to get them in the store? This is the stuff that's out there in marketing right now about journey. This will work only if it works for you. I'm just trying to capture here what all the different ways you can do this, depending on how intricate your business model or, this is about, this here is the stoking of this is my favorite part, which is the loyalty part. So wherever you touch them, it's got to be really, this is the meatball differentiation thing. This is to be different. Can't be like everybody else. I've seen in our area where there's a restaurant that has a really successful dish. I don't think you guys are doing it. I think St. Paul is very collaborative, but I think other parts of the county, somebody will put something on a menu, and the next day, somebody else is, or the next week, if they've heard it's successful, they'll steal the idea. And why do that? Because you're never going to be as good as the first guy who did it. If it's that popular, and why not just do something different? So the exemplary part is in what you're offering. Don't set their expectations too high, but always satisfy them. This is so big, because this goes back to how we feel, what's in our heart when we're dealing with them. Gratitude. Even if all you can afford is a thank you, that's huge. And a look in the eye that you don't know what you did for us today by walking in here and joining us today. That's really huge. And it also, the life of the entrepreneur can be very stressful. When you focus on that other person, it takes you out of that stress for 30 seconds or a day. This is, in banking, we see this a lot. There are things we simply can't do for a customer. So what we have to do is figure out daily how to help them, even if it's something that we cannot do. This is key. And that may be, well, back to the miracle on 34th Street. Oh, when the lady got really mad at Santa because he told the kid, oh yeah, you're going to get it for Christmas. And she's like, you don't have it here. And he's like, go to Gimbel's. It's that. It's that whole thing. If you can't help them, find a way to, if you can't sell them something, find a way to help them. It's that simple. Know what your customers appreciate about you and your company, and then just do it. That's that whole Nike thing. So this is one of my favorite business guys. His name is Peter Drucker. May he rest in peace. He was a management geek. This is really key piece of wisdom. The purpose of a business is to create a customer. It's not because you love something and you want to sell it. That love is important, but it's always about the customer. It's always about the experience they have in your establishment. And this is, a lot of people, there are people in MBA school, who don't really like this and don't agree with it, but I think it's key, because then what you realize is you're marketing all the time and you're innovating all the time. If you accept that you're creating a customer and keeping a customer, then you're always about the customer, which means you're always trying to reach that customer through marketing and innovative products. That hammer that sells all the time, you keep it there for, you know, you stoke that, you keep it in stock, or that set of nails you know somebody's going to like. It's that concept. So brand really quick. So that customer persona thing, you can actually create a company persona, and you can kind of keep. What is, this goes back to, what's the experience we want our customers to have when they enter our website or walk into our store or talk to one of our employees? This can be really powerful. You could say our company persona, I don't know how many of you remember Mighty Mouse. He was like my favorite cartoon character because he was little but he was mighty. So what's your company persona? Is it a cartoon character? Is it a gladiator? Is it, you know, how would you describe that? And then you can use that to create an atmosphere inside your company. Make sure you know what makes you different. There are, and you'll probably hit some of this in marketing, and you can look this up. This stuff's out there on the internet, and there's really good stuff. The brand structure, logo, consistent use of logo, you know, what's your tagline, all of those things. It's the story, and all of this, you'll see this. What a story can do if it's powerful enough, it'll shape perception, it'll provide barriers to your other competitors, it will invite people to join you on your journey, which you have happening here in this room. It will attract investors, and it will attract employees. You know, word will get around, oh, that's a great place to work. You know, those people treat you well. Or it's a great, even if it's not a career for somebody, it's, McDonald's has perfected it, it's a great training ground. You know, that kind of thing. Maybe your business model is to have part-time employees in high school. Maybe that's who your staff is. Make that the best job so that those kids are climbing over each other to come and work in your company. That could be really good. And then you just develop a model for how, and those kids will teach each other. It could be really cool. So the last thing you're going to have in your packet are this micro moments thing. These are going to be links that you'll see in the body of this, in the notes part of the slide. Which, by the way, you know, kind of, this is a bit of a roadmap for mapping. So what are those? How to live in a micro moment, how to craft a vision of your customer experience, how to be their hero. Another way to map, which is, you know, these things that I gave you, and 10 steps that you can follow to the mapping. So all this said, you know, at this point, if you're into this, we can keep kind of talking about it and see if anybody has any ideas. Kathy, you can call time. What do you know?
Let's take a break right now and
Okay.
then come back and
Why are we eating pizza now? Sure. I'm in.
Okay,